The countdown begins. Inside a dimly lit office in Beijing, Xi Jinping sits at the head of a long polished table, surrounded by his closest military and political advisors. The air is thick with tension, but Xi feels calm, ready. For more than a decade, he has been preparing for this very moment. Trillions of yuan have gone into modernizing China's armed forces. The nation now possesses around 500 nuclear warheads, the second largest navy on the planet, and a standing army of more than 2 million active personnel, the largest on Earth. This will be the boldest move of his life. Xi is about to bring war to the United States. But he knows this can't be a reckless charge. The United States has a powerful network of overseas bases, with roughly 190 scattered across Japan and South Korea alone, all backed by the world's most technologically advanced navy. America's Pacific Fleet may be smaller than China's in sheer numbers, but it has far more firepower. A direct, uncoordinated strike would invite instant retaliation and possible annihilation. So Xi has a plan. His first goal is not to strike America directly, but to blind and weaken it. The Pacific must be secured. Taiwan must be taken. And only when the U.S. is reeling will the next phase, a full-scale war, become possible. But this war will not start with missiles. It begins in cyberspace. For years, Chinese intelligence agencies have been infiltrating American networks, building secret backdoors into key systems. The U.S. has caught China's hackers before, most famously in 2023, when American cyber forces dismantled a massive botnet known as KV, used by China's elite Volt Typhoon hacking group. But Xi has many more teams in reserve, and today they will all be unleashed. At Xi's signal, dozens of coordinated cyberattacks begin almost simultaneously. Chinese hackers target U.S. water systems, electrical grids, port authorities, rail networks, and especially anything near key military installations. Logistics companies that would deliver supplies to Taiwan are hit. Communications networks are flooded with malicious code. The goal is simple: disrupt, delay, and confuse America's response. The cyber assault. The United States is no stranger to Chinese hacking attempts, but this attack is different. It is bigger, faster, and more coordinated than anything the country has ever seen. American cybersecurity teams scramble to isolate infected systems, but the scale of the attack leaves them chasing shadows. Transportation networks falter. Communications with Pacific bases slow to a crawl. Some military logistics systems go dark entirely. For 2 critical hours, the United States is partially blinded, and that is all Xi needs to launch the next phase of his plan. He gives the order to activate the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, PLARF. With around 120,000 personnel and 6 known missile bases spread across China, PLARF is the spear tip of Xi's strategy. According to U.S. Naval Institute estimates, PLARF has as many as 4,000 ballistic missiles, ranging from short to intermediate range, many capable of hitting ships moving at sea. Xi has made some difficult choices. He knows that an assault on Taiwan is inevitable, but America's Pacific Fleet, with its 200 ships, 1,500 aircraft, and 150,000 personnel, is the biggest obstacle standing in his way. He needs to weaken it first. The missile barrage. Xi's plan is a 3-pronged missile strike. First, he targets America's forward positions. Waves of DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missiles, nicknamed Guam killers, are launched toward U.S. bases in Japan and South Korea. The DF-20 SAXS are joined by shorter-range DF-16 missiles aimed at closer targets. Second, Xi orders strikes on America's key Pacific outposts. Guam, home to Andersen Air Force Base and Naval Base Guam, comes under fire. Then comes the boldest move yet, a hypersonic missile strike on Hawaii using China's DF-27 missile, capable of traveling thousands of miles at blistering speed and designed to bypass U.S. missile defenses. Finally, Xi targets American ships directly. 9 U.S. cruisers, including the USS Shiloh and USS Mobile Bay, are in the Pacific near China. Xi hopes to sink or cripple as many as possible before they can join a counterattack. Dozens of destroyers are also targeted. Though China knows it cannot hit them all, every ship sunk now will make the coming naval battles easier. America's defenses activate. China's cyberattacks may have disrupted some communications, but they have not blinded U.S. early warning systems. America's Defense Support Program, DSP, satellites detect the missile launches within seconds. President Joe Biden is briefed almost immediately. America's ground-based interceptors, GBIs, in Alaska and California are primed to shoot down incoming missiles. But there is a question that looms large in the Situation Room. Are any of these missiles nuclear-tipped? Satellite tracking suggests they are not. The trajectories indicate strikes on military targets, not major population centers like Washington, D.C. or Los Angeles. Biden and his advisors conclude that this is a conventional strike, a devastating one, but not the opening of nuclear war. Orders are given to evacuate troops from high-priority strike zones where possible and rely on missile defense to stop what they can. The first impacts. Minutes later, the Pacific skies are ablaze. Missile interceptors shoot down some of the incoming threats, but there are simply too many to stop them all. Okinawa is hit especially hard. The Kadena Air Base, home to a large portion of America's air power in Japan, is devastated. F-15 fighters are destroyed on the ground. E-3 AWACS radar planes and KC-135 aerial refueling tankers are blown apart in their hangars. Thousands of American personnel are killed. South Korea also suffers. Several American bases are struck despite Seoul's missile defenses. Meanwhile, U.S. Navy ships in the Pacific are in constant motion, performing evasive maneuvers to throw off Chinese missile targeting. The tactic works for some, but not all. By the time the smoke clears, nearly half of the 9 American cruisers in the region have been sunk or crippled, along with dozens of destroyers. China has fired almost a quarter of its missile stockpile, but the damage is significant. America's Pacific presence is weakened. Japan and South Korea, both hit by Chinese missiles, now have no choice but to join the war on the U.S. side. The assault on Taiwan. With America's Pacific Fleet temporarily slowed, Xi turns to his main objective, Taiwan. For 24 hours, China unleashes wave after wave of short-range ballistic missiles on the island. Air bases, naval installations, and radar sites are pounded relentlessly. Chinese J-16 fighters duel with Taiwan's F-16s and Mirage jets in the skies. Yet Taiwan is ready. The island's Patriot missile batteries and locally made Skybow systems intercept hundreds of incoming missiles. While some targets are destroyed, Taiwan's air defenses hold long enough to keep its military operational. Still, she cannot delay. The longer he waits, the more time the U.S. has to send reinforcements. He orders the ground invasion to begin. But Taiwan is a fortress. The western coast, the closest point to China, is heavily fortified. Barbed wire, tank traps, and pre-sighted artillery positions await the PLA's landing craft. Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwan's president, has ordered that ports and harbors be prepared for demolition if capture is imminent. Roads to Taipei can be collapsed, tunnels destroyed. America's diplomatic counterstrike. Even as the military fights, Biden opens another front, the economic war. America leverages its global network of allies to impose crushing sanctions on China. Europe, already wary of Beijing's aggression, joins the embargo. Oil becomes Xi's nightmare. China imports nearly 12 million barrels per day, and while Russia supplies some, most comes from countries aligned with the United States, such as Saudi Arabia. Under American pressure, these suppliers cut Beijing off. Suddenly, Xi faces a ticking clock. China's war machine must achieve victory within months, or its fuel reserves will run dry. The counterattack. Biden moves to rally NATO under Article 5, which states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. China's missile strikes on Hawaii and American bases constitute just that. NATO joins the war effort. Now, she must contend not only with the United States, but with the combined might of Europe's militaries, as well as Australia, South Korea, and Japan. A massive naval task force is assembled. 11 U.S. aircraft carriers set course for the Taiwan Strait, joined by the UK's HMS Queen Elizabeth and her complement of Typhoon and F-35B fighter jets. Australia opens its bases for U.S. bombers and submarines. The battle for Taiwan. For 2 grueling weeks, China throws everything it has at Taiwan. Amphibious landings are attempted again and again. Each time, they are repelled with heavy casualties. Taiwanese engineers blow roads, collapse tunnels, and turn every approach to Taipei into a maze of obstacles. Urban warfare rages in towns and cities along the west coast. Xi's dream of a quick victory dies on the beaches. And then on the horizon, America's fleet arrives, bigger, stronger, and backed by NATO allies. Carrier strike groups fan out, launching waves of aircraft that sweep the skies clear of Chinese fighters. Tomahawk missiles slam into Chinese missile batteries and airfields on the mainland. Xi now faces the very nightmare he sought to avoid, a prolonged war of attrition, with the world's most powerful coalition closing in and his economy bleeding dry. The war has only just begun, but China is already on the back foot.